grew up on a hop farm, Doug.
I did. Both sets of my grandparents moved out in the very early 1900s. We had to scoop the hops off of the floor, and I still have the shin marks from catching the screen.
I started out drying hops when I was 16. Dad wouldn't allow me to go to school until harvest was over with. And then I dried for the next 42 years.
Did you ever figure out how to do it right?
No, still got bales back every year.
My dad was a dairy farmer. I know my dad looked at me and said, you probably, I know you don't love the cows. He says, you probably ought to go do something else. I met my wife, and her family were hop farmers. Anyway, ended up over here, and similar to you, that's where they threw me. I started drying hops.
Steve, what would your dad think about Yakima Chief he was around?
He was from the old school. He didn't mess around with the hop dealers. You know, they were kind of the king. And he wanted us to move forward, but move forward very carefully.
I knew that we had to change this thing. I sweat on a tractor and sweat out in the middle of hop yard, 100 degrees, getting those vines swatting me in the face. And every time I would get hit, I would think to myself, why don't we get paid right for what we do out here?
To think that growers can get together and make those kinds of decisions to balance the market and work together is really a testament to where this company is going to go in the future.
One of the keys is developing this compelling common vision, buying into it, and that paves the way for making the sacrifices that you're talking about.
You know, when I look around the table, from Tom down to some of even the newest growers in the group, in our own unique way, we're all pioneers.
Our mission is to make connection between family farms and brewers. And it probably started, in my opinion, really with the Anheuser-Busch Direct program.
No question. There's no doubt about
that. That was the first real attempt by a brewer to reach out directly to the grower community. Right. Really paved the way, I think, for our success putting together a grower-owned company.
The other thing they brought to us that we didn't understand was we needed to deliver a quality crop.
And that we had to build a relationship with these people that are using our product.
What's been interesting about this group is the willingness to set a price for the hops and live with it, and then reinvest the profits over and over and over again.
We were working hard to try to buy the extract plant in Sydney, Nebraska. Mike got a call from one of our competitors, said he now owns the extract plant. Basically saying, now what are you going to do? The next morning I went down, a fellow that shapes ground in the lower valley, I said, we're going to build an extract plant. 14 months later, we had that extract plant built. I think in a month and a half before we got done, we figured out how we were going to finance it. Some other growers that took great risks to come together with us to make that happen.
It's a challenge in our company because we've got all these fiercely independent farmers.
For some reason, people had confidence that this bunch of knotheads were going to make that thing work.
We early on made the mistakes that I think a lot of farmers make when they get together, becoming processors and marketers.
There was some pretty rough times. The banks said we're going to have a sheriff's sale. They were foreclosing on us.
Yakima Chief, for example, 2 different times was literally bankrupt. That's how tight that this thing was, and we were so close to losing it.
It's worked because of a cohesiveness and a faith in each other. You remember when we had the fire? And Mike will tell you, I was bawling over on the edge of my truck with my head down like this.
I think we get the credit for where these farms are at, but the real credit is with the wife.
I'll be married 49 years this October. My wife's an independent businesswoman and still works, and she has a career, but certainly has always been a part of, the support on the farm. We support each other. Certainly you don't be successful on your own.
Both of us laid awake every night, wouldn't say a word to each other, but we knew that each other was wide awake, just staring straight up at the ceiling. Where are we going to live next year?
There was a game show on, and Steve goes, well, honey, what are we going to do? And we both looked at each other. Well, deal or no deal, let's throw it in. We're going to do it. We're going to make it work. We did have some finance officers call, and they actually said, Judy, maybe you should tell Steve to throw the towel in. It's his heritage. How can I tell him to throw it on in and give it up? I said, I won't do that. We're gonna fight for it. And we did. We fought for it, and I'm not saying it was easy. It was hard. But we did it. We stuck with it.
You just did everything you could to keep the farm going.
You know, we went through it, you know, like everybody, through hard times, but I think our husbands have had a foresight to see change and be able to move with the changing times.
That's what I find unique about this group, the group. They're not afraid to take a chance, not afraid to try something new, and I think that's a good quality in all of them.
You had to move forward. You couldn't stay the same. You had to make changes if you were going to make some money out of what you were growing. You had to look to the future. It's a legacy to pass down to the next generation. It is.
We can bring them along and say, come join us. And if they come join us, then they'll find their way, and then they'll decide what their future is with what we have created. And that will be the exciting part as we age, darn it, but that to me is going to be very exciting to see how they decide how it's going to go.
Times have changed. There's so many more people on the farm anymore doing different jobs. There's lots of nieces in the office, more nephews working the fields. Everybody has a spot. And yes, sometimes you don't get along, but you work at it, and the next day you're back at it again.
I don't know about them going through the tough times yet, or realizing how tough we had it.
When something goes wrong, there is always somebody there to back you up, to encourage you, to be with you.
We hope that we have instilled a lot into them to know that, hey, be careful. If you're going to expand, make sure that this is something good that you want to get into.
It's a family, and they rely on each other.
I can remember talks of, well, you know, we might have to sell the farm. Looking back, you know, that's the type of stuff that motivates me now. Is I never want to get anywhere close to that.
Growing up in the 90s, early 2000s, just a kid running around the farm. I was oblivious to it. I didn't care. I was eating macaroni and cheese out of the box and fish sticks, and I didn't know anything about it, you know, until later on. I mean, it's a blessing to be where we're at right now.
You know, I remember as a kid thinking that my dad had this like crazy job because he was on the farm sometimes, and then it would be like, all right, I'm leaving, I gotta go to China for a week. You know, and then Brazil and Europe a couple times a year, always going somewhere to try to sell hops. My great-grandfather had a saying that if you don't have anything to do, grab a broom. And I would just sweep the picking machine for $1 an hour. You got paid. Yep, got paid.
To this day, they talk about those memories of being on the farm, you know. One of the first jobs they ever had was go over every day at shift change and sweep in front of the picking machine. Boy, they liked filling out that time card and getting paid.
When I look back, I have a great respect for the opportunities that my father gave me as a young man. And I mean a young man, I mean right down, I think it was 5 when I was bucking hay up to a hay baler.
I remember 14 was the magical age where you gotta start driving tractor at our farm. And you know, back then it was real irrigation. I mean, every ditch had to be cleaned out by hand.
Everybody probably learned how to drive on the farm too, right? Everybody have memories of that.
Stick shift.
Yeah, stick shift. Trying to learn 1937 Chevy truck.
I could hardly see over the wheel or reach the pedals.
Probably sometimes the brakes aren't always the best too on some of those older trucks.
I would take his truck, drive him out there, he would irrigate. He would try teaching me to do it, and it was like I failed every time. So what he taught me to do was back the pickup up and you drive to the other end with the kid. I always ended up in the ditch. Oh no. To this day, I do not back up good.
I was one of those kids when I grew up, first thing I wanted to do was get away from the farm. I was having a great time, married and whatnot, and my dad started talking about stepping away from the farm or slowing down a little bit. And it kind of hits close to home a little bit when he says that, you know, you start thinking, okay, I don't know if I'm ready to see the farm go away. And I hadn't been back to the farm 2 years. And my dad says, we're going to a meeting in Sunnyside. Tom had this vision, and he started talking and thundering at some point during the meeting, this is what we're going to do. We're going to come together. We're going to change the industry. And listening to him talk and the vision he had, the passion he had to share with everybody and bring more people in to do that, still remember it like it was yesterday. Walking out of that room thinking, holy crap, what am I getting myself into here? So, because it was completely different from dealing with merchants and the old way of doing things.
I think it's amazing, the work ethic.
I think it's passed on generation to generation very well. You see it in all the families.
And I hope that we continue to reflect and look back on what people had to do to get to this point, because we need that same innovation and grit and hard work in order to maintain this, and I think that we have it.
The generation I see coming in, I think, are equipped to be smarter, have more tools at their disposal, and they're stepping up, and I think, yeah, they're going to work a lot harder, or also going to work a lot smarter.
Hasn't technology made all our lives a lot easier, though?
Yes, it has.
Irrigation technology and greatly changed the hop industry. The hop fields moved from the flat lands to the hillsides. You're not constricted by real irrigation anymore.
It used to be you went out and looked at it and felt the soil and it needed water and you irrigated it.
Through our data collection, the tools that we were enabled, the management teams that we have in place, this company is still very nimble.
The dynamics of the market you deal with now, when we first started as Yakima Chief, before merger and everything else, it was all alpha-based, all big customers. You're dealing with your Heinekens, your Carlsbergs, your ABs. Yeah. With the craft segment, be able to spread your risk across thousands, literally thousands of customers has changed the whole dynamic and brought stability to something that was very unstable for many years.
Now you have brewers come around and they treat you like you're some type of rock star. I'm like, I'm just a farmer, man. Like, you guys are the ones doing something with this.
My optimism comes from looking around the world, and beer drinkers in the rest of the world are going to start drinking the same styles of beers that American beer drinkers have really started latching onto in the last 5 to 10 years. Only American hops right now can really create that flavor and aroma profile. There's no company in the world that's better positioned to provide that than this one. I'd be happy if we just didn't fuck it up.
I think brewing is always going to be a major component of it. We're going to unlock something that's going to open up doors for us that we don't even realize at this point. And I think we're going to be best positioned to take advantage of that through the breeding program, through what Jason's doing, the varieties, and the advancement of technology.
I do feel the industry is definitely changing. There's a lot more women involved. There's women brewers out there. There's women hop growers out there now.
Sarah went away to school, and when she graduated, Steve says, how about coming back? We need somebody to run the office. And that is what she has been doing. She is just like her father. She is very stubborn. She is the one who can kind of rein in Grandpa.
We had to get something done up in the county, and I said, I'll take care of it. She says, I'm going with you, Pops. And I says, well, you don't need to. No, I'm going with you. And this guy starts in. I'm sitting there starting to get stirred up a little bit. And finally I says, listen, Sarah hits me on the chest. Shut up, Pops, I'll take care of this. And so I shut up.
Best advice you ever got.
Yeah.
We've been working really hard on our farm to make sure that millennial generation feels a part of what we're doing. I'm there observing from the outside, coaching, rather than having to make every decision.
They have to come up with a plan to further that ranch, to make it go and grow even more and sustain itself. And that's the important part. That's what I want them to do.
The organization that we've built and the people that we brought in to help us still have that insurgent mentality.
I remember when we first got started, the other merchants kind of look at us more like a pest than anything else.
We've gone from 0 to where we are today in a couple of decades, versus centuries for some of our competitors.
Keeping that mentality, always trying to prove yourself.
And to talk with the brewers, they have ideas and they have things that they want to try out.
I'm very excited because just listening to everyone around this table, you know the quality of the children that we have coming up through the process. And it is going to be a very exciting time for all of us to watch everything continue and develop. We'll always have hops in this valley.
It took people who propped each other up.
Essentially, everyone in this group sat down and said, Yakima Chief and Hop Union, we need to figure a way to put these two companies together.
And Keith was totally against it, for sure.
Well, it was a great leap of faith.
Yes, there'll be struggles in this merger, but to look ahead in the future and see the potential. And that the struggles will work themselves out and they will fight for what they think is right.
I think that's a big difference between my grandfather's day and age and our day and age.
Bringing it together makes us better as a whole. You can't do it all yourself anymore. It just doesn't work that way.
It makes me smile just how far we've come, and we're still pushing at this stage.
Well said.
I don't envision any of us resting on our laurels, because we know, if you do, somebody else is coming.
Because we've all seen the bottom,
Exactly.
and none of us are in a hurry to return there.
I really do think, and this is such a cliche line, but I really do think it comes down to quality of our product, the sustainability of our farming practices, and the relationships that we have, not only with the brewers, but also with our employees. The last that I heard, Yakima Chief is the world's leading hop distributor.
The name on the box is Yakima Chief.
Exactly.
When it shows up to the brewery, it's Yakima Chief.
Exactly.
That old adage, it's the name on the front, not on the back.
I think you always have that feeling of, you got to keep the farm going, you got to keep Yakima Chief going, and it's something that our parents or grandparents kind of started, and you want to continually be better. So you kind of feel that pressure a little bit.
In the words of wisdom from Pat too, we don't want to fuck it up either.
Cheers.
There we go, gentlemen. Good luck.